Now we're going to model the alignment method used in POW instruction, so what we're really doing is classifying NAEP release items to the state standards. To align high-quality NAEP items to the Montana Common Core standards, we need to have an in-depth and comprehensive understanding of the cognitive demands items require of students. By going through this POW process, you will learn the nuances of the college and career-ready standards, as well as the considerations that should be attended to with these items. We're going to explore the items and make judgments about the degree of alignment to the Montana Common Core standards, the level of difficulty the item requires, the grade level relevancy, how appropriate the item is for Montana, and the knowledge and skills and abilities necessary for students to successfully accomplish this task. Specifically, we will achieve this by addressing each of these variables on our variable consensus sheet. For instance, what Montana Common Core standard best fits this item? In making our alignment judgments, we need to understand what item fitness is. For an excellent fit, this means that the concepts and skills addressed by the Common Core are also included in the NAEP item expectations. For a good fit, this means that part of a compound NAEP item expectation applies to the Common Core and part does not, or minor aspects of the Common Core are missing. A weak fit means that major aspects of the Common Core are not addressed. And no fit, or zero rating, means that no aspects of the Common Core are addressed. For our POW purposes, focus your attention on one primary standard. Don't forget the scoring guide. If the item has more than one part, classify the most significant part of the item. In alignment, we want the smallest grain size. However, there may be instances that secondary standards should be considered for full alignment. In these cases, reference the secondary standards, and in the comments section, make sure to denote which one is your primary placement and why. Due to our POW scope and time restrictions, we mainly model and gain agreement on primary standard designations. That being said, conversations about why there are multiple parts of an item and why one item may address several Montana Common Core standards should take place. For instance, these conversations can take place while clarifying points of disagreement between peers in your consensus rounds. It's important to know what these differences are and why they are prevalent. These fruitful conversations about constructs, assessment designs, and assessment purposes may reveal nuances that everyone should bear in mind while considering classification decisions. These considerations will help you become more assessment literate and understand why the NAEP construct, by design, was not intended to conform to the expectations of the Montana Common Core standards. Now we're going to look at how we actually do this process. Here's a NAEP item. This was given in 2013 for 4th graders, and the item is measure to locate a point on a line segment. This was a short constructed response item. Its difficulty was denoted as hard, its complexity moderate, and 27.12% of the students given this item were able to answer this item correctly. When going through the alignment process, you might say that the grade that this item is most appropriate to is the 4th grade, and that your fitness to the 4th grade is an excellent fit. When going to the domain, you might place that this item is measurement and data, and that again, this is an excellent fit. When looking at the cluster, you may say that this is solving problems with measurement, and your evidence for that is solving problems with measurement, and possibly that the standard that is most appropriate for this item is 4.MD.2. That is, use the 4 operations to solve word problems with cultural contexts, including those of the Montana American Indians, involving distances, intervals of time, liquid volumes, masses of objects, and money, including problems involving simple fractions or decimals, and problems that require expressing measurements given in a larger unit in terms of a smaller unit, represent measurement quantities using diagrams such as number line diagrams that feature a measurement scale. Looking at the practices, we might say this is showing practice 6, where our evidence is they are attending to precision, and this could be an excellent fit. When looking at the depth of knowledge 2, with an excellent fit, where our evidence is the student has to retrieve information from a figure and use it to solve a problem. And lastly, if we look at revise Bloom's taxonomy, we could say that this is apply, that it is an excellent fit, and our evidence for that decision is they are carrying out a procedure. So here we have an item that was assessed in 2007 at grade 8. The item is use a graph to identify incorrect written statements. And to be sensitive to our explanatory time, most examples presented here will cover major aspects found in the variable sheet, but we may not spend a great deal of time and attention to the item fitness, evidence needed, and the comment sections of your variable sheet. However, we want you to vet these aspects in depth, and we are only minimizing our conversation of these to get through the modeling exercise in a reasonable period of time. So here we would probably say that the domain that is most appropriate for this item is statistics and probability, and that it's most relevant for grade 6. This could be an excellent fit. If we look at the cluster that's most appropriate would be summarize and describe, where our evidence is they are examining data. The standard probably most relevant to this is 6.sp.5, where they're summarizing numerical data sets in relation to their context by reporting the number of observations, describing the nature and attribute under investigation, including how it was measured and the units of measurement, giving quantitative measures of center, median and/or mean, and the variability, interquartile range, and/or the mean absolute deviation, as well as describing an overall pattern and any striking deviations from the overall pattern with reference to the context in which the data were gathered. Lastly, relating the choice of measures of center and variability to the shape of the data distribution in the context in which the data were gathered. The substandard that we think most appropriate based on those definitions would be B, describing the nature of the attribute under investigation, including how it was measured and its units of measurement. For the depth of knowledge, a level 2 would be most appropriate, and for Bloom's, apply, where our evidence is retrieve information from a table, graph, or figures and use it to solve a problem with multiple steps. So for grade 12, the grade or conceptual category that's most appropriate, this would be in high school, and it's most likely that this is going to fit with functions and specifically building functions. For our conceptual category, we have placed functions, and we have stated this is an excellent fit. Our evidence is you need to use an explicit equation to generate the shape of the 20th term. Our domain would be functions, specifically building functions, where our evidence is use an explicit equation to generate the 20th term. Our cluster, build a function that models a relationship. The standard most appropriate would be functions, building functions, and 2. So f.bf.2. For practices, we would say this is most appropriate for the 4th practice, and that students must model the picture with an equation. The depth of knowledge most appropriate would be a 3, and we're using concepts applied to a non-routine problem. And revise Bloom's taxonomy, understand. So now we're going to look at your POW assignment. So for your POW assignment, we want you to work the item as if you were a student. While you're working the item, make notes while you work the problem of the steps you took in order to complete the task. Use the notes in the comments section of your consensus building sheet to articulate the knowledge, skills, and abilities a student would need to successfully answer the question. Place the item where it's best represented under the Montana Common Core, and elicit any evidence of the standard that helped you place this item in the evidence section of your consensus building sheet.